March 7, 1994. Air Force vet Don Berliner receives an anonymous roll of film. It's postmarked La Crosse, Wisconsin. On it is this: photos of an alleged Special Operations Manual classified Top Secret, Magic Eyes Only, titled Extraterrestrial Entities and Technology, Recovery and Disposal. Inside are descriptions of craft and ET entities, press blackout procedures, and craft recovery rules. Quote, there are few indications these objects and their builders pose a direct threat to the... Hold it. Is this legit? Berliner, with retired Army intel officer Jan Aldrich and others, issued a press release stating, "We believe this to be a hoax document, a deliberate fake designed to mislead the public and to plant false information in the UFO community, by person or persons whose motives are unknown, forcing investigators to waste their time." But this hasn't stopped some researchers and TV programs from featuring this, without a disclaimer. Who could have made this document? And why is there an effort to stymie ufologists? We analyze declassified documents, and those posing to be. Subscribe to join us. There were many issues with the manual. The content, for one, didn't match its purpose. It included a history of UFOs and information on radar detection of them. Recovery teams are also not told simple procedures, like setting up a grid, photographing the scene, and tagging each item found. Basics like how to handle hazardous materials or gases are not included. It throws the kitchen sink at soldiers, its intended readers. This is the opposite of compartmentalization, a common military practice and one consistent in legitimate documents. More concretely, paragraph subheaders use the sans serif Helvetica type, despite being claimed to have been written in 1954. Helvetica was designed in 1957 by Max Meidinger. But why did someone go to the trouble to create this? And why does it include detailed references to craft that have been seen by trained observers? Could there be any truth to some of the contents? All good questions with no clear answers. And this is how disinfo is supposed to work: create confusion, which leads to infighting among, well, all of us. Let's start at the beginning. Over a span of 2 decades, 4 men received hundreds of these documents, almost always by anonymous mail. March 1981. Bill Moore says he received this teletype stating NASA investigated legitimate UFO sightings through cover organizations. The first mention of an MJ-12. The document claims the group has access to a Project Aquarius, which rounds up sightings. In 1989, Moore wrote he believed it was a fake, crafted from a real Air Force Office of Special Investigations document with Aquarius and MJ-12 added. He believed, but couldn't prove, that it was created by AFOSI to give to researcher Paul Benowitz. Thankfully, we have several legitimate AFOSI documents for background. They show Benowitz claimed to photograph UFOs near Kirtland Air Force Base and alerted Special Agent Richard Doty. Doty and Jerry Miller, a former Blue Book investigator, visited Benowitz and examined the images, to which Miller concluded, evidence clearly shows some type of unidentified aerial objects. However, he couldn't determine if they were a threat. Miller called Wright-Patterson AFB, who sent personnel from the Foreign Technology Division to investigate. The story gets more twisted here. 2 weeks after the visit, Benowitz met with other Air Force officials and told them he was in contact with the aliens flying the objects. Doty then told Benowitz AFOSI would not investigate further, something he also told Senators Harrison Schmitt and Peter Domenici when they asked. Doty admitted more 2 decades later. "This wasn't the only operation we did against somebody with UFO information," he said on radio program Coast to Coast. "One of the things is giving them enough information that some is credible for them to lead them along the path." And that's the main question about these documents, right? How much of this is legitimate? And how formalized was this disinformation process? Doty claimed he was trained by others. The Benowitz operation was a team, he said, not just himself. In 2000, he wrote, "Everything I did was sanctioned by our government." Confused? That's how this is supposed to work. We still can't pin down who wrote the Aquarius teletype, the first to mention MJ-12. But researchers Brad Sparks and Barry Greenwood revealed more background on Bill Moore, the original recipient, in 2007. That year, they shared several private notes Moore had made after meetings with Doty. One writes, "Benowitz is onto something, UFO-related, but doesn't realize it. They neutralized him by feeding him disinformation. Had he kept up his work, he would have made a significant discovery." Another writes the government's main concern was the following getting out. "Jesus Christ and the establishment of the Christian religion were manipulations affected by beings of an advanced civilization. This was done as a sociological experiment. Some visitations of UFOs have been for the purpose of monitoring this experiment." Of course, how can we trust any of this? Doty may have simply been feeding more additional disinformation under orders from AFOSI. Others, though, will argue that since it was presented off the record and not in a hoax document, that it may have some truth. Again, this is how disinfo is supposed to work. But let's continue. Lesser known in this saga are the series of questionable documents put forth by Timothy Cooper in the 1990s. In 92, Cooper received 13 document sets from a Thomas Cantwell, claiming to be an ex-CIA officer with Majestic involvement. They included a Majestic 12 first annual report, intel assessments from an interplanetary phenomenon unit, and analysis of crashed ET craft. 4 years later, Cantwell's "daughter" sent 14 more. An alleged report from Albert Einstein on relationships with extraterrestrial men, a Magic Eyes Only report on the internal components of unknown craft, and a directive from President Eisenhower on unidentified objects being kept in White Sands, New Mexico. Stick with us, we've almost made our point. Cooper got one last batch of documents from an unnamed source, S1, in 99, and highlighted this, a memo he claimed was pulled from a fire at the CIA. It's come to be known as the Burned Memo, and is an alleged series of directives distributed to MJs 2 through 7 from MJ1, allegedly director of the CIA. It's a laundry list of juicy items, including a directive to deny FOIA requests, one to conduct house cleaning in major population centers using from MKUltra, and a reference to wet works if Washington can no longer be influenced. S1 also sent images deemed too sensitive for Blue Book, ET autopsy photos, and a photo of 4 alleged members of MJ12 together. But is anything sent to Cooper legitimate? Well, he didn't think so. And some touting these documents might not actually know he disowned them. In 2009, Cooper emailed Robert Hastings with the following: "The MJ12 documents, and I mean all of them, including SOM 101, are a hoax, and those who promote them as reality know this, or should know this." Cooper adds he was foolishly taken in by the MJ12 fantasy, and an unwitting dupe in this charade. Something odd we noticed. Cooper claimed in 98 that he received confirmation of an MJ12 routing number on a FOIA document from the CIA. When writing Hastings, he didn't specify if he faked the FOIA response or if he believed someone else did. Some may think this is cut and dry. Others, though, probably think Cooper could have been intimidated and wished to wash his hands of the entire thing by dismissing them. And again, it's how disinformation is supposed to work. But we're beating a dead horse at this point. The main takeaway is this: there are hundreds of pages of these disputed documents. Some argue, how could they all be fake? Who would ever really go through the trouble? We wonder something different. Why is someone, or more likely a group, continually putting together complex materials meant to mislead? Why would it be a priority for, say, a government office to spend taxpayer money dividing UFO researchers so they waste their time? Or disbelieve any mention of a UFO control group? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And special thanks to our patrons, including NJR. If you like what we do, consider joining them on Patreon and help us produce one new episode every week. Most of our traffic comes from external shares, so if you have any family or friends interested in this topic, we'd appreciate it if you ask them to subscribe. See you next time.